Hi and welcome to Gallery Watch. We're at the Mundaring Hills Open Studio with work from many more talented artists. But first, we'll start with an artist, Brian Aylward.
I do oils, acrylics, none of the drawing media, charcoals, pen and wash, what have you. I very especially find a mixed media because there's like you do an infinite variety of different forms of mixed media, and I always enjoy that. When you've got, say, 7 or 8 different media in the art, the actual varieties and that you can produce from it are pretty well infinite. And of course, and apart from that, I enjoy my sculpture. And again, there I sort of tend to go from one to another. And so I do welding, steel sculptures, stone, and again things like mosaics. Just as the mood takes me. I started out with a thing called poster paint, which you probably haven't heard of. And so many years ago, when I was a lad, that was like the acrylic of those days. It was water-based and it was cheap, and so that was the first. And then I went from there to oils, and it slowly spread. And the pastels, I really started getting involved in pastels. Again, I enjoy, so the different forms of sculpture. Again, where you can combine one with the other. For instance, I use glass and set into stone. And yes, I like that feeling of always experimenting, always trying something else. Ones that take the most are the oil painting. Well, most of the time anyway. Obviously it depends, Art has always got a depends in it, But yes, because usually you're doing lots of layers, so you have to wait for it to dry and so on. So you'll have to keep, chewing away at it, if you like. Well, something like pastels, you can do it in, not necessarily one sitting, but you can just keep going on it. You don't have to wait for it to dry. And because, so that's one reason why when I travel, I tend to use pastels all the time, because there's great portability. Since its inception, I think this is our 3rd year, and it's been very rewarding. There's been some artists that have come and gone, but there's a hard, core, if you like, that we tick along, and we get on well together. We work well as a group, and we're deliberately diverse. So when people visit us, they can go from one person to another, and they'll find something new and a different environment each time. first thing I did was draw horses when I was about 14. But it goes back about 35 years ago. I sort of, round about there, I decided that if I was going to be an artist sort of thing, then I would have to get my finger out and get into it. And I've, started to go very hard at it. All my spare time was involved in it. And then, 24 years ago, I gave up work and became a full-time artist. I've always got work that's, ideas in my head. There's always sort of a dozen different ideas that are there, and I never have reached a stage where I don't know what to do next. It's rather, picking the choice of what I'm going to do next. I've used a similar idea across different medias, because you find out using one media that a certain thing works, it's a good effect, and often you can apply it to another media, which again enhances that area. Started off as this little bit of fun. Well, it still is, to be honest. I enjoy doing it and putting the work around the place. And it's sort of like most things on this property, it's slowly grown. For instance, when I started off, it was very little here at all. But since then, I've built 2 studios. A large one where I do things like the large-scale oil painting and where I have my classes. And then a smaller one where I do my pastels. Mostly it's got a lot to do with being able to leave things as they are. With the pastel studio I can leave my work permanently set up there. I don't have to shift it if I have a class or something. Also it's a small space, so it's much easier to keep warm and cool, as the case may be.
This one over here.
It's got a big one here.
Both this one and the green one above it.
This one actually came about from, I had a small painting I'd done about year size, and a friend of mine suggested we would make a big one. So that is what I did. It's out of acrylic, and it's coastal heath, but it's a great opportunity to play around with sort of blobs of paint. So you've got nice bright colours, you can play off one against the other. And it gives hopefully a nice feel of the bright walk to the beach. The rainforest, obviously the challenge there is that you've got a scene which is almost entirely composed of green, and to obviously a painting is much easier if you've got lots of different colours. You can play one against the other, but to get the tones and the whole feel of the work using basically one colour is a big challenge. But I enjoyed it, and hopefully it gives a feeling of the coolness as you walk through.
This one here, I see you're bringing it back to Australia. Do you want to tell us how you created this? Because I see all the colours are blending together.
Well, this one is mixed media, and I started off with acrylic, putting it on with a painting knife. Then on top of that I came with ink to delineate the surfaces, and then I finished off with oil pastel. And hopefully it gives a nice multi-layered effect and helps to bring the figures out. You have to put on one colour, go away, come back, put on another colour, let it dry, come back and so on. So the overall time isn't great, but it's spread over a long period.
It's worth it, definitely.
Thank you.
So this one here, it's very different to your other pieces of work.
Yes,
Do you want to tell us about it?
Well, actually, it's the nature of a challenge, because you find yourself doing similar things after a while, and it just come to mind that that to do something like this with pen and wash in a very sort of classical fashion, was it called for a lot of very careful drawing and work. I was actually going through a magazine, a horse magazine, and the dressage type work and photographs is intriguing because you get this stateliness, the way the horses move, and the rider has to be sort of totally static, and it's well, that was the attempt.
What is your favourite piece of work in this whole entire gallery?
Yeah, I suppose the big one. Yes, the big work. I really enjoy doing it, and it's a bright, cheerful piece.